Welcome. You are listening to The Travel Winds, hosted by Pete Kotzbach. This is a weekly interview show about people who travel for work and all the ups and downs that go along with it. Each episode includes a variety of discussions with athletes, business people, musicians, influencers, entertainers, and even regular folks from around the world. Thanks for listening. Here we go.
Hey, welcome to the show today. My guest is Jordan Bass. He's the CEO and co-founder of HOP WTR, HOPWTR. Make sure we spell that correctly. How are you today, Jordan?
Good. How you doing, Pete? And I'll crack a hop water to start the show.
There we go. That way everyone knows it's a carbonated drink.
Absolutely.
So, pretty stoked to see you again. It was nice going to the event where I met you.
Likewise.
You had a great weekend.
I did.
It worked out for everybody involved.
Absolutely.
But kind of I'm so curious because we talked about this before. How do you get started in a beverage company?
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe I'll just tell the listeners a bit about our about the weekend, not leave them hanging too much.
You're gonna okay.
But yeah, Pete, thanks for having me. It's great to see you again. We met a couple months ago at an event and hit it off, and so nice to have an opportunity to speak with you. I'll tell you about starting a beverage company, but they spent this weekend in New York City at the UFC fight where our brand ambassador and part owner Dustin Poirier was one of the title fights, and it was incredible experience to be there. Dustin won. Fortunately, obviously, we were cheering for him. I have to say, in the stands, my heart was pounding. Just watching him with the excitement was really, really fun. Anyway, so we can get back to that. But so I've wanted to be an entrepreneur for a really long time, and I grew up in Northern California. I was always kind of an outdoor guy. It's relevant for the company because it was part of my inspiration for looking at product that fit my personal needs. So grew up in Northern California. I was always skiing, snowboarding, backpacking, hiking, all that kind of stuff. And then I studied business in school, went into the venture capital industry in the clean tech space, which was an area that I am really passionate about. It's alternative energies, more efficient products, et cetera, to reduce carbon emissions. And then I went to work for one of the startups that they financed, was literally the first employee for that company, made the first sale, built it up to well over 20 million in revenue. We sold part of it, licensed part of it. It was an incredible ride and a roll your sleeves up experience. And then after that, I went to work for a big CPG company, consumer packaged goods company, and had an incredible experience there, learned a ton, but really learned the food and beverage industry, and always passionate about healthy products, but really wanted to do something more entrepreneurial. Had always wanted to build my own business, and so starting HOP WTR, my friend and co-founder Nick Taranto, we'd been hanging out in LA, just kind of socializing. He has 2 kids now, 3 or 2 at the time when we met, now 3. And we've got a great group of friends here in LA, and we'd always get together on Sundays and watch football or go on camping trips together or whatever it was. And we were, both kind of commiserating on the fact that we had, trouble burning our beer guts. We'd put on more pounds than we wanted to. I kind of came to it. I was actually training for a triathlon, and we were just kind of talking before the show about kids. And so I was training for a triathlon, and I kind of wasn't wondering why I wasn't burning my beer gut as much as I'd anticipated with all that running and swimming and biking, et cetera. And then my wife got pregnant with our first child. And of course, so she stopped drinking. I like to say I lost my drinking partner. And it put a spotlight on the fact that I was the one crushing double IPAs on the couch at night, and and drinking too many beers on the weekend, which I enjoy drinking beers. And
you realized you didn't need your drinking partner.
yeah, exactly. And I found that there was a lot of occasions where that moment of cracking a cold one, just as we did at the beginning of this show, was so important to my balance in life. Like that, busy job, busy with social life, et cetera, right? Traveling. And that 30 minutes or an hour or a couple hours on the weekend was critical to my recovery. But I found that there was a lot of times when I actually didn't want the alcohol. Maybe I had a big meeting the next day, or was just trying to stay clear-headed to work on something later that night. but substituting a LaCroix or, another product, like, just didn't give me that feeling of relaxation and that moment that was celebratory. And, Nick would say a similar thing. And so when we didn't see a product out there that met that need, we said, let's go create this ourselves. So anyway, kind of a long background, but that was how we started the company and got into the beverage game.
Well, no, and that's pretty key, because that's where the hop part comes from it, right? I mean, you actually have hops
Absolutely
in the drink. And I like the idea that you had the nootropics and some of the other things that you've added in, but it's 0 calories, 0 sugar. I mean,
yeah. So hop water is So just to give kind of an overview, hop water is a sparkling water infused with hops. So we take hops, which are main flavor ingredient, or one of the main flavor ingredients in beer. We extract the oils, the essence, infuse that into a sparkling water. So you get this great, like, herbaceous, piney, citrus notes taste from the hops. And then we've added in ashwagandha and L-theanine, which are an adaptogen and nootropic, which is, again, going to that kind of moment of relaxation. Really wanted something to help de-stress and kind of relax in that time of enjoying this cold beverage. And we looked at kind of non-alc beer, and at the time they didn't taste that great, and they're still pretty calorie and carb heavy. And you've taken the kind of alcohol away, so you've taken that moment of relaxation away to some degree. And we wanted to find another way to support that functional benefit of the beverage. So we added ashwagandha and L-theanine in it. And then we also have flavors on top of it. So what I just described, and as you said, it's 0 calorie, no sugar, no carbs. And we have a classic flavor, which is the most kind of herbaceous, piney. And then we've got mango, blood orange, lime, and peach. So you can also enjoy flavors.
And I like the lime, but I think that's the one you just introduced.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we launched that in January of 2022 of this year. And then and then we launched peach this summer.
There you go. How interesting it has the last 2.5 years been launching a business during COVID?
It has been crazy. Yeah. I mean, in the beginning, when we were actually formulating the beverage, it was when COVID hit. And, there's so many stories of launching this business in COVID and how, unique is. But anyway, when we were first formulating the beverage, we were in the room sitting across from people, working with our partners to get the flavor right. And then all of a sudden COVID hit, and no one knew what to do. No one was allowed in the buildings. It just kind of put a halt on everything. It was really rough, and worked with our partner at the time and, figured out a solution. And Nick likes to tell the story. We basically would pull up to their building, and they would kind of like walk out in like hazmat suits, basically.
Yeah.
They were like,
and they're done that.
Yeah. And just basically, the product to taste. And, we'd have the trunk popped open on the car, on the truck, and be kind of tasting. And that was literally how we landed on the final formulation. We were, kind of on the back of the car, and we both tasted. We're like, this is amazing. We kind of give each other a look. This is it, right? Let's go.
Because I often, I'm in sales for my day job, and I was thinking, like, and I've asked a couple of people, it's like, my accounts I already established, so it was okay. It's one thing to do a Zoom call with an existing account that you've had a couple of years of in-person interaction, but how do you start a relationship, with some of your distribution channels and stores via Zoom or email? It's like you got to send them a package, but there's no face-to-face. That's got to be the roughest part, I would think.
So challenging. It really is challenging. I think it spreads. I'll talk about sort of building the relationship from a sales standpoint, but it's also just hard internally as a team when you're. So I can come back to that, but yeah, you're absolutely right. And in the early days of COVID, very rightly so, a lot of folks were focused on just getting the basics in. People. This was a
they weren't going
crisis,
to take a chance with something new.
Yeah, and I don't blame anyone at all. This was a crisis. We needed to get basic items to consumers, and so it was bringing a new item in. A lot of places were on hold for new items. It was very challenging in the early days, and you had to kind of figure any way to get our product on shelf. And And we actually pivoted early on and launched via e-commerce because we had originally, the way that you normally build a beverage brand is you work with on-premise, bars, restaurants, et cetera, to kind of build the awareness of a product, and then you go into retail. But and that was our original plan, but that wasn't available to us because of the climate. And so we pivoted pretty hard and launched via e-commerce, and that worked for us really well. My background is in that space as well as Nick's co-founder. So we're able to really successfully launch, and actually think that accelerated the timeline of scaling the company because we were able to reach a lot of consumers really quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely super challenging. And we've been making up for it big time. As soon as we were able to kind of get back on the road, we made up for it and got in front of our customers and in front of our distributors. There really is no substitute for that. And then the last thing I'll say about it is we are still not back to 2019. There is a lot of interactions that are just Zoom based, and it is really tough to develop those relationships and then get the other items that you might not say in the formal meeting. I mean, those discussions before and after a meeting can be the most critical sometimes for establishing a partnership.
Well, even I mean, for me, all my sales went up when I could go back and see people in person. Because I think it's a lot easier for people to say, yeah, maybe next time over a Zoom.
Yep.
Whereas in front of people, I think it's a better sales always in front of people, especially with a new account.
And you can also, get to more of a win-win in those scenarios too, because you can kind of, okay, well, hey, what's the barrier? And then someone says, well, hey, it's, X. And you're like, oh, no problem. I can solve that with, this way. And it creates a better outcome for both companies versus, to your point, via Zoom, it's just so easy to, okay, next.
Yeah. Well, and then I like what you said, because a lot of the relationship is built before and then even after the actual meeting, learning about their kids, their family, their dogs, and their what's going on. I always make a point of trying to figure out what kind of mood is that person in before we start the meeting. Or they have a rough weekend, are they tired, are they depressed, or the dog just died, so you don't want, what I mean?
Yeah, and it's funny, like I genuinely enjoy that part of sales and in business. I really, I learned early in my career from this great CEO that I worked for that the majority of business is the people. And, in school, they teach you charts and graphs and all that kind of stuff. And it's much more mechanical, but you get into the world and it's really relationships you develop with people. And I really genuinely enjoy doing that and feel, honor connection with people that I work with. You make a commitment, you follow through on it. On Zoom, I genuinely don't like the
except for
small
podcast
talk kind of part. It's just so forced feeling, and I've talked to a lot of other people that feel that same way, and so I think it makes it very challenging. I'm glad we're getting back to a little bit more normalcy.
I'm with you. I totally agree.
Yeah.
When you started the business, and I'm kind of just making the assumption that you do more traveling than maybe you would have expected. Going to distribution, doing the canning, doing where's the hot water actually canned and made? Where do you make the product?
Yeah, so we produce actually East Coast and West Coast. We started on the West Coast only, produced in California, and then we also produce in Ohio. So so we're on both coasts. As with a beverage, it's tough and very expensive to ship fully across the country. So you really want to have your production a little bit more regionalized. And yes, to answer your question, I mean, I've always traveled a fair amount for my career, so I don't think I had an expectation of not traveling, but it's definitely met my expectations.
Okay, I'm putting the math together here. Hold on a sec. You start a company at the beginning of COVID, basically, right?
Yep.
You have a baby at the start of COVID. You have a second baby during COVID, and you're trying to grow a business.
I've been a busy man. Yes.
Yeah.
Very, very busy.
Yeah. And I like the idea. Are you, I mean, well, let me just ask, are you still doing as much hiking and traveling and triathlon stuff as you did before?
No, I would say that
I was going to assume that, but I'm like, maybe.
Yeah, no, I would say that has been curtailed to a significant degree. I mean, I still, of course, exercise. and keep that routine up. But that extracurricular stuff is been pretty non-existent.
On hold.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I have a trip that I have done for, I think it's on its like 10th year now, with a group of guys from high school and college. And every year we would go backpacking, and we'd go 3 or 4 days, no reception.
Yeah.
And the last 2 years, the only years that I've missed. So I'm hoping to get back to that.
Good luck with that.
Might be a couple more years of missing that trip.
Good luck with that. Yeah, your wife would be much more understanding than mine. So
Yeah.
that's all I'm going to say with that one.
Yeah, that was pre-kids that I went to. So
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It'd be nice. It was nice because I was like you. My daughters were 17, or they are 17 months apart. So we were just like, whoa, they're 2 in diapers, 2. I mean, it was like all of a sudden.
it's a lot, and I have to be very thankful to my wife to support me. This, starting a business truly is a family endeavor. There's no way that I could do what I am doing if she did not, spend so much time supporting the family and the kids.
Yeah. So like this last weekend, how you did it with San's kid? No children.
I did it Sans Kids, and
How nice was
actually,
that?
this was a little bit unique. My wife actually happened to be in New York for work over the same weekend. Completely random. She works in sales also, and happened to be traveling there this weekend. So it was pretty cool. We got my mother and her sister to trade off watching the kids back home, but we got a very rare weekend of a little bit of time with no kids together. So it was quite fun, actually.
And then, like you mentioned before we were recording, then you had to come home.
Then I had to come home. Yes.
And the kids went, "Oh, you're back."
Yeah. As you mentioned, it was a rude awakening. I got home at 8 o'clock last night. I shouldn't have kept the kids up. I did an extra half hour, and I paid for it for the next like 2.5 hours trying to get them down.
There you go. Yeah, because they went like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we're not tired. We're good. Was that your first UFC or MMA fight that you went to?
That was my first one, and it was electric. It was pretty fun.
Well, it's like taking my friends, or I took my daughters to their first rodeo was the World Championships, in Las Vegas, and enclosed, and it's the best of the best. They take the top 15 people during the year. And so they get done. They're like, "Oh my God, this is awesome." Yeah, it's not always like this. It's not always the best of the best.
Yeah, it was in Madison Square Garden in New York City. I mean, pretty incredible. Hard to beat that.
And Dustin coming back and winning, that's a good thing.
It was amazing. He's such an inspiration. I chatted with him after and was just kind of, it's so incredible. I mean, he stays calm and focused in the face of someone literally,
wanting to
punch you in the face.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible.
But I'm with you. Like, I actually watched these fights, and I was just like, I mean, that was a slugfest. So I was kind of like, wow. Yes.
Okay. He's
Another
a
day.
machine. So impressive. All of those athletes are really, really incredibly impressive. I mean, you see these guys in person, and you see what it takes to train for this. And I mean, they're true athletes.
How did Dustin get involved with you guys? This is a great story.
Yeah, it was really cool, actually. So it was, how many fights ago? Maybe 3 or 4 fights ago. So he was, when he's in training camp, he either drink or doesn't drink, or cuts down on his drinking. And he had just randomly found Hopwater, found our product, and tagged us on Instagram. And of course we saw, hey, who's this guy with the kind of blue check mark on his name that tagged us? And we looked in and we reached out to him, and we just made an immediate connection, like personally and professionally. And he was like, "Look, I love the product. I've been consuming this on my own." And so we're like, "Hey, let's find some way to work together." And so we did. We actually talked to him, I think, when he was in his training camp for the fight. And we said, "Okay, hey, well, let's talk after your fight," and then got connected and figured out how to put a relationship together. And he's an incredible guy. I mean, our company, as I mentioned, I have 2 kids. Nick, my co-founder, has 3 kids. Like, we're all about figuring out how to be great business people, great, have a great social life, though mine's not very existent right now, and have, amazing family life. So we're like really a family oriented company. We think that's really important. And he's got a daughter, she's 6, he's super into family. And so we just like made kind of a real connection, and it's been an incredible partnership.
That's a good fit. I mean, he's a good dude,
So inspiring too.
Yeah. I think I told you, I literally watched him on when he was either semi-pro or just starting out or as an amateur on a random show. Cause I'm an MMA fan. So, and he ended up being kind of the star of the show, and like no one knew of him. So like to see him now fighting McGregor and all these other guys, you're like, oh my God.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Really cool. Yeah. We feel privileged to be partnered.
Yeah. When you travel, like when you went out to New York, do you unplug, or do you stay in work mode and try and get things done on the plane on a 6-hour
I'm
flight?
a pretty 100% work mode. I love working on planes. I really loved when there was no Wi-Fi on planes, however many years ago that was.
Yeah.
Just because you
couldn't.
Yeah, you would. No, I would work, but like.
Well, yeah, but on your laptop and.
Yeah, I was on my laptop and just was so productive. And I would love when you would, get back to the hotel room and connect, and there was like 25 messages in your outbox, and it felt very productive. So no, I'm a stay pretty plugged in. I like to be kind of in and out, efficient with my travel, stay pretty focused. I'm on 24 hours when I'm traveling.
So, question for you: when you came home from New York, I think yesterday or Saturday?
Yeah. Yep.
Were you plugged in, or was your wife like, "Hey, this is me and you time"?
I did take some opportunities to spend some time with her. That was a very I'll go back on my statement. That was a very unusual, the fact that we were both in the city at the same time. So yes, we did. I think Friday night we got a really nice dinner together, and then Saturday we spent actually some time walked around Central Park. We got engaged in Central Park, so
nice.
We actually went back to the spot where we got engaged, and that was really pretty special.
Yeah, those are the weekends that make up for the bad weekends.
Yeah, my uncle actually, early on in my career, when I was in venture capital and in a startup, I was traveling a ton, like 200,000 miles a year. Like I was really just on the road a lot, and he traveled a lot early in his career, and he was telling me that he would try to spend some time to do something nice in each city, and that made it much more enjoyable. And so I would say I'm reasonably bad at that, but I try to do at least one thing that kind of makes the trip a little bit more enjoyable. And oftentimes it'll just be like a run through the city or by the water or whatever it is, or maybe go to some coffee shop or something that I've, had my eye on. And, even just that 15 minutes can like make the whole trip much more enjoyable.
What do you think? What would you consider the most influential city you've been to?
Most influential? Oh, that's a really great question. I'll instead of one specific city, I'll talk a little bit about kind of a collection of cities. So early in my career, so grew up in Northern California, went to college in Southern California, eventually moved to Arizona, but I'd spent kind of my whole life in California. And I think you have a way of becoming jaded that it's kind of the only state, and it's the only place I could live, et cetera. And I had the benefit when I was working for the startup. I did a lot of sales in the Midwest, the East Coast, kind of really all over the country. Like I've been to 42 of the 50 states now, and a lot of that was with that travel. And I realized that there was so many cities that were very livable and were wonderful outside of LA or California, where I thought kind of, I'd spend, it's the only place I could live. And so that was really eye-opening for me in a really nice way. And I could talk about a couple cities particularly, but that was a really nice experience for me.
What are the states that you're missing? Because you got a few more than me, but I want to get to all 50.
There's a couple, like the Dakotas I haven't done. There's a few I haven't looked at this list in a little while, but there's a few in the Northeast. And then I think I still haven't done Idaho. and there's like one other in kind of that mountain west kind of region that I haven't
Wyoming or Montana or
I've not done all of those. Maybe it's just Idaho is the only one in that area. But there's a few Midwest and a few of the smaller kind of like Northeast states that I haven't done.
see, I'm in the North. I haven't been much up in the Northeast. Been in New York and New Jersey, but that's about it. And Maryland. I've been in Maryland. My daughter graduated from Towson, so
Nice.
flew there.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure I'll have to look at that list again and then start to get them checked off.
Alaska is going to be a hard one for me, I think.
I've done Alaska. Alaska is incredible. I was also stunned at, I mean, it's a 6-hour flight from California.
Yeah.
It's no joke getting
I
up
looked
there.
it up. Yeah, I'm like, I just want to fly in, land, and get out.
I was one of those, not to digress too much, but it's pretty cool. That was one of those backpacking trips with the
Nice.
with my friends. We flew up to Anchorage, then we drove 4 or 5 hours to a national park, including 2 hours on a dirt road, parked the car, walked into this town. There's no cars allowed in the town, stayed there, and then got on a plane, like a little puddle, not even puddle jumper, like a prop plane.
Yeah.
And they literally landed on a dirt runway in the backcountry, and we're like, okay, guys, get out, hike back. And that's literally what we did. We got out and did a couple-day backpacking trip and hiked back. It was incredible.
That would be influential, I think.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
What places do you want to visit?
Good question. I mean, there's some international destinations I still haven't had an opportunity to go to. Still haven't been to Japan. That is, I mean, I was at the airport, but that doesn't really count. So that's pretty high on the list. We've been trying to find some time there, and then Southeast Asia in general. I'd love to just kind of tour around that area. Spent some time in Korea for one of my jobs, which was awesome, but haven't spent a lot of other time in the region.
It's so crazy. Almost Japan is the number one destination for most of my guests that
Is that right?
Either that they've been there and they want to go back, or that's where they want to go. And we had there are so many bigger things. However, in March of 2020, we had tickets to go to, in April of 2020, we had tickets to go to Japan. My daughter and her boyfriend here were going to meet us there like 3 days later. And my other daughter and her husband were going to meet us like 4 days later. And so we were all going to meet up in Tokyo and then spend a couple of days together and then go off together. What happened in March of 2020?
Yeah, it's good thing that wasn't like, a week earlier and you had gone on the trip. You might have gotten stuck.
Yeah. But it was just like, we were so bummed. It's like, because it's hard to get 6 adults,
Big time
schedules and work schedules and life. And now I'm going to be a grandpa, so she's going to have a hard time traveling. And so
big time.
But
yeah, I know. We had a similar, not March, but late 2019, we were supposed to, and this is actually another one of my, we had Morocco and Portugal planned. And when my wife was pregnant, we were kind of like, probably shouldn't risk it. So we'll cancel it. And then little did we know, we were like, oh, well, we'll just do it, in 2020.
We'll do it next year.
Yeah, exactly.
I one of my past guests, she's in Morocco this week.
Oh, wow. Nice.
It was one of her bucket list places too.
I mean, the scenery, the aesthetic is incredible. It looks like such an interesting, unique place to travel to.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think North Africa would be kind of cool. Egypt, and then there's some areas I'd want to avoid. But
what's your top travel destination you haven't been to?
That I haven't been to?
Yeah,
Japan, Tokyo.
Japan, nice.
For me, I want to see Australia. I haven't been to Australia or New Zealand. My daughter went to New Zealand, said it was awesome.
Everyone says it's amazing.
Yeah, and she had a friend that she went to high school with, and then he moved back to New Zealand, so she had free room and board there. I'm like, well, do it,
That's cool.
And then my daughter my other daughter, she went to Malaysia. Her college roommate was from Malaysia, and so when they graduated, she spent like 3 weeks over there, and they went to Singapore, and they went to all the places like you want. Southeast Asia is like they hit them all.
Nice, very cool.
Yeah. So my daughters have traveled more internationally, and then I've been to many more states, mainly for work. But
that's cool. Very cool.
Yeah, Tokyo's on our list, so we're waiting.
Yeah, hopefully you get that trip rebooked.
We were pretty bummed because at the time, Nippon Air didn't refund us our money, and we were like, well, we would go if you would let us, and they're like, well, it's too late, because we missed.
Really?
Yeah, because we got so close to the takeoff time and all that. And so like, God, it had to be almost a year later. All of a sudden I got, $4,000 refund on my credit card. And I'm like, where'd that come from? Like, what happened? We're just, and it
Nice.
from Nippon
Well,
Air.
I'm glad you got it back.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, because they were like, well, you should have told us last week. And I'm like, well, we didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, it was like information was coming out by the hour. It was very
Yeah.
confusing.
And they were like, well, you need to contact Expedia. And Expedia's like, well, you need to contact Nippon Air. And then Nippon's like, well, you need to contact Expedia. And I'm like, oh, don't do this to me, guys.
That was such a confusing time. I've actually started to kind of just like catalog some of those times in writing, because I don't want to forget, especially, as you kind of said, I mean, I had our first child in April of 2020, launched the business, such a unique time. And the memories kind of start to fade. I don't know if you were, but since we had a child, we were like very careful in that early part. I mean, we were like wiping down the groceries and like not seeing anyone.
You didn't know.
No, we didn't know what to do. And now it seems like this kind of surreal, distant memory. And I don't want to forget that was, we all went through that for a year or two.
The blessing I have with this show is I have recorded history basically because I do the show once a week, and I have a recording history of what everyone was going through at that time. It's kind of interesting.
Wow, amazing.
Everybody I talk to are business travelers. So right at the beginning, everyone's like, oh yeah, a couple of weeks, and it'd be nice to have a couple of weeks off. And the people that were 6 months in were like, yeah, we're not sure. We had to cancel our tour. I talked to Justin Bieber's tour manager in April or May of 2020, and he had just it was May. He had just laid off 83 people, and they had finally canceled the Bieber tour for 2020.
That must have been so brutal.
And he's like, these people took 6 months off of their life off for me, and I just told them good luck.
That's awful.
Like, you don't know. No one was saying, hey, it's gonna be over in a month, and
yeah, it was a very confusing time. I mean, to that point, we all kind of went home from the office, thought it was going to be a couple weeks or a week, and yeah, very strange. That sounds rough.
Well, I talked to Maxi Priest, a reggae singer. He got stuck in Jamaica because his home's in England, and but he couldn't leave the island. They weren't letting people leave.
Wow.
Jeez.
Yeah, we're fortunate to the way that many people's experiences.
Yeah.
During that time.
Yeah, so it's nutty, and I'm glad it looks like we're kind of getting out of it. It seems like, I mean, countries are opening up and travel's less restricted now. Yeah.
I was in New York. Last weekend, but I was in New York also, I don't know, 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, something like that. And for me, that felt like a milestone moment. I hadn't been back to the city since, before COVID, and just being back in New York felt like something that I needed personally to kind of be back in the world, and to felt like, okay, it's, it felt like back to normal, basically.
Well,
though it's not
weird
quite
for me was for work, I traveled to Tennessee, I traveled to Texas and Colorado, and like I fly into Texas, and this is 2021. Like, so in California, we're locked down, masked to go to the grocery store and masked to go in everywhere. And I fly to Texas, and they're like, why are you wearing a mask? And I'm like, I don't have to. And they're like, no. I'm like, okay.
I had a similar experience in 2021.
Tennessee, my daughter goes, I don't even know where my mask is. I haven't seen it since we got married. I'm like,
yeah, it was strange in Los Angeles. I mean, were so locked down.
What's your story?
What's that?
You said you had
I had a similar story. I flew to Austin, and in 21, and same kind of thing. Walked into coffee shops, restaurants, no one had masks on. It was definitely completely different. And then you get back to California, and it's like full.
How dare you?
Yeah.
So hope. I think we still have to wear the mask at medical facilities.
Yeah. Yep.
And Uber. I don't know if Uber's still.
I don't think you have to in Uber anymore.
Not Uber. I remember when they changed it, and like, well, just at the airport. I'm like, So in the airport, I'm supposed to, but once I get through the security, I don't understand. I don't need to, but when I get on the plane, I don't need to. But if I walk through the airport, I have to wear it.
There's a lot of confusing regulations.
Yeah. Curious, is a hop water only available right now in the United States? Do you have Canada
Yes.
distribution?
Yeah, we're focused on the U.S. now, and
We're talking international, so I was wondering if you had delved into.
No, we haven't. We focused on the U.S. Big market here, huge opportunity. Sure. We're not even in all 50 states yet, so we have a lot of room to grow within the U.S.
We're in California. Where's some of your bigger distribution places, your bigger stores?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so California's great. We talked about Texas. Texas is great. The Northeast, Midwest, you can get us at leading retailers like Wegmans in the Northeast, Acme, HEB down in Texas, Total Wine, Bevmo, Gelson's, Erewhon. You can get us in select Ralph's and Kroger's. We just launched in select Targets in California, Texas, and New York, so you can get us there. And I'm probably forgetting a few. You can also get us online and through Amazon and GoPuff. So yeah, please, all listeners, go out and try the product. Appreciate the support.
What do you see for the next couple of years? Where do you see the growth coming from?
I think there's just a ton of opportunity within this space. This kind of like broad moderation trend is, something that we're seeing a lot of the young people and really across the board consumers be interested in. It's like, I think Nick and I built the product for ourselves, and that's one demo, but we're seeing that it really applies and is, has this kind of mass appeal. I mean, I enjoy drinking beers, enjoy having a cocktail, but I found that a lot of nights of the week or day parts, like I want something tasty to have that moment of relaxation. And so we're seeing this like huge moderation trend, and I think there's going to be a lot of growth continued. There's a great stat that 58% of consumers are switching between no and low alc and full strength alc in the same occasion. So that just tells you how many folks are looking into moderation. There's also, I think the number was 30-something% of consumers participated in dry January last year. That's up from like 21%. Wow. So like this is a mega macro trend that aligns with the health and wellness trends we're seeing, across the country and more broadly. So, we think there's going to be continued really steep growth in this category. And we think non-alc, kind of beer and non-alc in general will reach, multiple percentage points of the beer category. Today it's less than 1%. So there's a huge amount of growth out there.
And I can tell you personally, like when I have to drive, I don't drink. So that gives my wife a chance to have a margarita or a glass of wine or whatever.
Sure.
But then I'm either stuck having a soda, which I don't want because it's all the sugar and calories. I don't necessarily want to drink a plain tap water. So it's like, where do I fit that in?
And we're seeing a lot of consumers just like you that are, whether it's their night out or it's just at their home or wherever it is, are wanting to avoid sugary beverages, really into focusing on health. There's a lot of awareness around that, right? And to your point, might be a soda or something you'd have at a backyard barbecue, but like that's just not aligning with your health goals. And so then you're stuck with a LaCroix or with a tap with, an ice water, and it just doesn't feel that satisfying. And we're really like perfectly positioned in that position. And consumers are telling us that our product fills that need for them.
Well, I'm in. So
nice.
Yeah,
Cheers.
I like it. What's the best way for my listeners to find out what's going on with Hop Water?
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow us on Instagram at HOP WTR. You can also go to our website, hopwtr.com. Those are the best places to get info or check us out on LinkedIn.
And then I know on your Instagram, you've done some promos and commercials with Dustin and all that. So
absolutely. Yeah, we're always posting the latest news. We've got a couple other brand ambassadors that we work with. So we're always posting the latest on there. You can also sign up for our email, and we're doing promotions. This is, we're talking just before Thanksgiving and Black Friday. So we've got a nice Black Friday promotion coming up.
Okay.
So we'll always have deals if folks want to try the product.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, I appreciate the time, and hopefully I'll run into you again. It's great.
Absolutely.
Close by. So
yeah, Pete, cheers. Thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, Jordan. Appreciate the time, bud.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.